There's one more thing we need to do before we finally import our two data sets, and it's an optional thing, and that is to import a canvas background. So in order to get to that menu, you need to click into the canvas, not have a visual selected, in other words, and click on Format Your Report Page. We can go to Canvas Background, and then we can click on Browse under Image, and I'm going to navigate to my football icons folder where we saved the football background and the other icons earlier. And here's our football background JPEG that we saved. I'm going to click on that, import it. Nothing happened. What's going on? Well, by default, it goes to 100% transparency. Now, if we bring that down to 0%, you get a certain image. All right, that's the image we brought in. But notice it doesn't quite fill everything. It's not the same resolution as we currently have. So in order to get it to fit, we can just go to Image Fit here, and I'm going to go to the Fit option. That looks a lot better, except it's a little dark, and our icons are dark, and now can hardly even see our icons. I would not go with this. I suppose another option would be to color our icons. We could certainly do that and maybe turn these icons to white icons, and that could work. But what I'm going to do is increase the transparency quite a bit, which will lighten the image. I might go to around, 80, I'll go maybe 76%. Now that's not bad. We can clearly see the icons. That looks pretty decent. Again, some people would prefer to have no background to keep it clean, or maybe use a solid background of another color. But for now, we're having a little fun. We're doing a college football game dashboard, so why not put a college football field in the background? You will notice one thing though, and you really need to be conscious of this if you are going to put a background, and that is our icons were just fine because they're PNG files and so they're transparent. If they were JPEGs, they would have a white background and it would look similar to this. We have our text box here that by default has a white background. So let's click on that, which will bring up the options under Format for that particular text box. And in particular, we want to go to Effects, and there's a few things we can do. One, we can just simply increase the transparency of this. We could change the color of the background here. I want a blue background. But really what we're trying to do here is should be able to remove that. And so there's a few options to do that. One would be to increase the transparency to 100%. That looks good. That's about what we're trying to do. Or go back to how it was before. Another simple option is just turn off the background. There we go. All right, so that's looking a lot better. And notice it's a little stretched right now. It's stretching because we increased the pixels for the height a little bit. So notice it'll be less stretched if we go to something like 600, but I think we might adjust this a little bit later, but we'll go with 800 for now. All right, our dashboard is starting to take shape and we haven't even brought in data yet, but that's our next step. So let's bring in some data. In order to do that, we're gonna go to, on the home screen, our Get Data option here. We'll bring in our college football data set first, and remember that's an Excel file, so we will click on Excel Workbook. Easy as that. And it's going to ask us to navigate to that file. So you want to navigate to wherever you save those files from the website. Should be in your project folder if you saved it in a project folder. There it is, college football games. It's only going to show your Excel files by default. Double click on that. And when it comes to an Excel workbook, it can have multiple tabs. So the next thing it's going to ask you to do is to select which tab do you want to bring in, right? So a lot of times in an Excel workbook, you can't have multiple visuals in a worksheet, which wouldn't play well for importing to Power BI. You really want a worksheet to have rows and columns and to kind of have your column start on row one, although there's ways to work around that in Power BI. Your column headers don't start on row one. In our case, they do. Column headers, row one, and you have all your individual college games below that. We only have one tab. We're going to select that particular tab or worksheet. There it is. Gives us a preview. Looks good. There's a few options. If you want to go to the Power Query Editor right away before even having it try to load that, we can. We can click on Transform Data, or you can just go ahead and let it try to do its best to import the data, and it usually does just fine. That's what I'll do in this case. I'm going to click Load, but if you did want to go to the Power Query Editor that we will go to eventually, straight off before it tries to import it, click on Transform Data instead. I'll click on Load. It's going to spin a little bit while it brings in the data. The larger the data set, especially if it's a SQL query and the SQL query takes a while to run, can take some time. In this case, it processed it pretty quickly And remember that fruit table we created? Well, we deleted it, but now we've imported games from an Excel file and it shows up under our data pane. There it is, the games data set. Now we can expand it and see all of our columns there. Pretty neat. Well, we have one more data set we want to bring in, and that's the weather data set. The data set that's one row per date city combination. So let's bring that in. Also going to go to get data, just like we did before, but this time our weather data set is in CSV format. And so we'll click on CSV, and similar to before, we're going to navigate to wherever we save that weather.csv file. In this case, it's in the same folder in our project folder, college football dashboard. Double click on weather, and similar to before, it's going to bring up a preview. In this case, a CSV file. It's one data set. There's no need to choose a worksheet like there is with Excel. So it just simply shows us a preview. I'm just going to click load. Again, you could go straight to the Power Query Editor if you knew you were going to need to do some work there. I'll click on load. This is a big file. It's got quite a few rows. We'll see how long it takes to import. But what we're essentially going to see is, there we go, that wasn't bad at all. We're going to see another data set on over here, weather. And if we can expand this, we can collapse it and see the fields over here, the fields over here. Great, we've got two tables to work with right now. Now, if we want to kind of explore the tables a little bit, we'll do that before we go to the Power Query Editor. I'm going to click on the table view. So this whole time we have been in the report view where we actually build the visualizations, the tables and the charts. But we can also go to the table view to explore our data. And you can go in here, and it's kind of like having filters in Excel, very similar layout to Excel. You can click on here and apply filters and just really explore your data. Now be careful, because some of the filters you apply here could still be applied when you go back to the report view. But the table view is really helpful. Right now we've got the games selected, so we're looking at games. If we want to see the weather table, we just click on weather. We can see the data there. Pretty neat. And it's good to explore your data too. Weather, just looking at it, you see the date format. We probably want to adjust that date format. We don't need the day of week to be in there. So we'll do that eventually. And it probably makes sense to do a lot of that from the report view where you have more ribbon options. This is more for just kind of exploring the data. If I go back to games, we already looked at this data in Excel, but now we're looking at it from Power BI's perspective. And so in some cases, the data could change. One example of that is the start date is not showing a date at all. It's showing probably days since, I think, January 1st, 1900. The way Excel looks at dates from a number perspective. Same thing with last refreshed. So that's an opportunity that we'll probably need to clean up here in Power BI. We'll show how to do that. But it's good to kind of explore your data and look out for those anomalies. There's a lot of ways to do that. Just taking a look at the data table is a good start. Well, there's one more tab here, and that's the model view, or I think about it from like a table relationship view. Right now, these tables are completely disconnected. If we filter on the game's data set, it is not going to impact the weather data set at all. But what we ultimately want is we do want to link these together. We want the weather table to be linked to the games table based on having the same city and date. If a game was played in a particular city on a particular date, we want to pull that row from the weather data set for that city for that date. So the way you typically do that is you can kind of drag one field to another. So I'd find, if all I wanted to link on was date, for instance, I could find the date field here. It sees it as a number, so we need to convert that to a date. But I would maybe just drag that over here and link them together. Now, you don't want to link on just a date if really they need to be linked on, because there's more than one row per date. They need to be linked on both city and date. Now, if you know a way around this, please put it in the comments section. But as far as I know, in Power BI, you have to link fields together based on one field, similar to how lookups work in Excel. Whether you're doing a X lookup or a V lookup or an H lookup, you have one match column that has to match another column. And so if you're trying to match on multiple fields, you need to kind of concatenate them together first so that you're, at the end of the day, still matching on one field that's actually combination fields. We're gonna have to do the same thing here. And that's where, when it comes to joining tables together in SQL, you've got so much flexibility. You can link on as many fields as you need to in a join statement. Just another means of comparison. But in this case, we need to join these tables together, and we'll do that in Power BI. We need to create a key, a single field that these can be merged together, and that would be the concatenation, the joining of two fields. That would be the date field and the city field. Now, one way we can do that is to use the Power Query Editor. If you like this video, I hope you'll consider liking it for me. And if you'd like to see more analytics, data science, and leadership training videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. Finally, if you have any questions on what we discussed today, please leave a comment and I'll try to respond to it as soon as possible. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.